Give me a wee second, I'll be right with you. Right, good afternoon, folks. That's Facebook on board. Excuse me. As you can see, we're minus a Davy again today. So this one, once again, it's the two Davies on the 31st of the 11th, 2023, but it will be done in the style of Indie Truck Davy. So let's get this show slightly started. Anyways, Indie Truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is clear, cold, crisp, 2 degrees, bloody cold. Winter's upon us. The other Davies still suffering some health problems. When I spoke to him earlier, he was absolutely out his box on painkillers. So being out his box on painkillers means he's not going to be very, very comprehensive for here. Okay, hi Ian. Anyway, that's a Facebooker starting to fire in. Hey, happy St Andrew's Day to all those here in Scotland and around the world who are religious and celebrate saints' days. I'm not a religious man myself, but I recognise the importance of it for people of religion. So, happy St Andrew's Day to all of those who celebrate religion. Okay, but let's have a wee look and see who's in, and then we'll get on with this. Christ, there's a lot in. Now we got James Connolly, Duncan McCretchat, Lenny Hughes, Gingers. Hi Gingers, good morning over there in the States. Alistair, Eddie, good afternoon. Mark, John, Stephen, we're still doing YouTubers. Hi Hugh, hi last Braveheart. And first in the door of the day from Facebook was Nancy. Hi Nancy. Hi Ted Boy. Hi Lorna. Ruth. Ian. Ian again. Hi Elizabeth. How's things in Gran Canaria? I know you're in your winter abode at this point in time. Fee Gates. I'm not going to ask how the weather is. It's bloody freezing here, Elizabeth. That's all you need to know. Right, let's get this show underway, will we? Right, first up is the news that arts unionist Alistair Darling has shuffled off this mortal coil. Mr. Darling, who was born, I believe, in 1953 in London, moved to Scotland with his parents and was privately educated at Loreto Private School in Musselburgh, where he went on to Aberdeen University to get a degree in law. He then worked as a lawyer for a short period of time before becoming a councillor in the Lothian area in 1982. Then he went on to become the MP for Central Edinburgh, I believe it was. He then, 2007 to 2010, was Chancellor of the Exchequer under Clunkin Fist, Gordon Brown, and we know what disaster his premiership was. He then went on to lead the Better Together campaign, where he took the Labour Party into bed with the Tories to conspire against the Scottish people. And we all seen what happened to the Labour Party. And we'll get a wee bit more of that a bit further on. But Mr. Darling, we can't say he's had an illustrious career. He leaves behind his wife Margaret, I think it is, his son Callum, his daughter Anne, and our condolences are with him. I'm not going to rip his reputation to shreds today, since his death's only been announced today. I'll rip his reputation to shreds at a later date. Okay, suffice to say that Mr. Darling has now joined all those pensioners that he scared to death in the first referendum. And mark my words, there will be another one. The first referendum, by telling them voting for Scottish independence meant that they would lose their pension. He basically petrified Scottish pensioners. A few of them would have passed away with the sprite. We know there'll be one in the Borders who took her cash savings of 600 quid and went along and stocked up for the local co-op. Fortunately, I was driving for the co-op at the time. And when I found out about it, the manager was kind enough to take it all back and explain to her she wasn't going to lose her pension. She'd been lied to by Labour. Anyway, Mr. Darling has left the planet. As I say, I'm not going to slag his reputation off too much today, and respect for his family. But I'll get to it. Trust me, I'll get to it. When all the fine monologues in the BBC and everything are finished, I'll rip him to bits. He was a failure of a politician, and he acted against the best interests of the Scottish people. So I'm going to say about it. So Mr. Darling has left the planet. He has exited stage left. Okay, so as I say, out of respect for his family, and he was an old pal of my dad's, out of respect for his family, I'm not going to rip on my bits today. But I'll get to it one of these days. Okay, right, let's move on to number 2. ONS figures on internal UK trade shows that 49% of businesses in Scotland bought some products from RUK in 2021-2022. 30% of Scottish businesses didn't buy any materials whatsoever from England to do with the running of their businesses. And the rest says, don't know, not really that interested where the goods came from. You know, but what was interesting about that is that leads to Pamela Nash, head banger of a secretive Scottish organisation with dodgy funding sources, Scotland and the Union, to step up to the plate to tell us you can't leave the UK. See, 49% of businesses bought something from England last year. So David decided to have a wee look and see who would be more reliant on this cross-border trade for real, based on these figures. Okay, so David went and had a wee look to see how many registered businesses there are in Scotland who operate. There were in Scotland operating in 2021, 2022, and the figure was 298,300, down to 341,000 the year before. Shows you how well the economy is doing, eh? Anyway, the number of businesses, registered business in England, is 4,821,000. Okay, now 49% of businesses in Scotland vote for England. That was 148,000 of the businesses in Scotland vote for England. Right? Now, we want to flip it the other way. 20% of English businesses vote for Scotland. Guess what? That would be 964,200 English businesses that relied on materials for Scotland to conduct their businesses. That would say to me that actually, because we're going by per capita, if you went by per capita share as well, that would make England more reliant on us. Anyway, Palmer says no, we can't become independent because of that trade. Palmer, I've got a wee news flash for you, head banger. And that is that England will come crawling up that A1 who are broken glass. Sorry, their politicians will come crawling up that A1 who are broken glass to get a trade deal with Scotland. 20% of the economy relies on goods for Scotland. They rely on gas, electricity, oil for Scotland. Water's becoming a rare commodity. Scotland's got gallons of it. They'll be needing that for Scotland and all. Pamela. Hi, William. So there you go. But these headbangers, the unionists, they seem to be a wee bit thick. They seem to think that the UK government will somehow manage to stop businesses from interacting with each other. I can assure you, as my partner in crime, Mr. Milligan, tells you, sorry, my partner in treason, tells you, he's a businessman. Most of his businesses in England, they'll work around any problems that arise, because that's what businesses do. And governments keep their business, it keeps their nose out. It should keep their nose out of it. Government interference, as we see with Brexit and things like that, not very good for the economy. But believe me, Miss Nash, these figures actually back up that England would be desperate to trade with Scotland. And they say it's nothing to do with English people. They say business people will trade. And they'll go for where the best and cheapest service is. And if that means 900,000 businesses in England rely on goods for Scotland, they'll continue to rely on goods for Scotland. If that means 49% of businesses in Scotland have sourced goods in England, they'll still do it. Businesses will find a way. All this negative crap for Nash. I mean, she is a nut job. Absolute nut job. A local nut job to me, actually. She lives in North Lanarkshire. Anyway, Pamela Nash in Scotland, the union making stupid noises. It only took Davies a couple of minutes of Google to find out which of the two nations would be relying on the other for trade. 2 minutes. All I had to do was look up the number of registered businesses in Scotland, the number of registered businesses in England, and have a look at what the proportions meant. And 8 times more businesses in England are relying on goods for Scotland than as the other way around. And of course, as we know, they need electricity, they need gas, they need oil, they're going to need water in the future. All this crap about winning the trade wars. But, you know, as I say, unionists are not very bright. Not very bright at all. I mean, the week before that, Nash is asking how we're going to operate a border with England. It's Nash, I know you're a unionist, we know you're not very bright. But the Northern Ireland solution's already there. We know how we're going to do it. Wow. Okay. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? The next one is a tale of two poles, Ipsos Mori and Redfield and Wilton Strategies. Ipsos Mori poll gave the SNP a 10-point clear lead over Labour in voting intentions for next Westminster election, while New Kids on the Block, Redfield and Wilton Strategies gave Labour a 2-point lead over the SNP. So, in the Ipsos Mori poll, commissioned by STV, the SNP are on 40% of the vote, Labour are on 30%. Thank you very much, Lorraine. And in the Redfield and Wilton Strategies poll, Labour were on 36% of the vote share, and the SNP on 34%. Now, the New Kids on the Block, we're not quite sure of their methodology, but what we do know is that Ipsos Mori have been at this for a long time, and their polling methods are solid. So I'm more likely to believe a poll for Ipsos Mori. But to be fair to both the polling companies, Ipsos Mori also asked the question of independence. In their last poll, support for independence was at 53%. In the Ipsos Mori poll this time, support for independence is at 54%. In the Redfield and Wilton Strategies poll, support for independence was at 48%, with 46% against. The rest are don't knows. If you strip out the don't knows, you've got 52 for and 48 against. So both polling companies show that independence is becoming the settled will of the Scottish people. But we still don't have a mechanism of getting there. We'll get a wee bit more of that later in the report. But I've seen Gordon Ross put a video out the other day who was talking about a strategy of all the independence parties getting together and agreeing, and he went on to talk about established independence parties. So he spoke about the SNP, the Green and ALPA. Well, when it comes to polling and public officials, there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that ALPA are an established party. They have no elected officials. They've got officials who walk the floor, and they generally lose their seat. And they have got, what do you might call it? They've got nothing in the polling share, as I'm about to show you, for the poll that's just been done. If we look at the seats, oh, see if we can make it bigger. Right, let's try that again. That's better. Now, if we look at the seat share in the poll that's just been done, that would give the SNP 48, Labour 7, Lib Dems 2, Conservatives none. Can't say, can't make out where that is, hold on. Cons none, Greens none, and others none. ALPA once again did the poll. They're in the other slot. And in the other slots where they just don't poll. They don't bother getting a party name because they're not polled. So, I don't know where Gordon gets this idea that the ALPA party are an established party. They're no. They're a new party. A new party with any elected officials. They will be established when they manage to get some elected officials of their own. But the polling doesn't indicate that they're going to score any seats. The polling indicates that the Greens won't score any seats in Scotland either. So the Greens will probably save their money for the Scottish election. By the way, polling for the Scottish election shows an SNP landslide taking them into a majority again. There you go. But as I say, it's a tale of two polls. And when it comes to believing polls, when it comes to Redfield and Wooten strategies, who are the new kids on the block, I think we'll take that one with a pinch of salt until we learn a wee bit more about the methodology. Well, I see John Stewart's trying to get out of the wind up again today, you know. You're going to be ignored, mate. You're in that category of people who are not bright enough to understand what we're talking about. Yeah, he's a Tory. A unionist Tory. He's not the brightest. I'll let you guys on Facebook deal with John, okay? Right, let's move on. Right, UK economy set for second lowest growth in G7. Now, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, you and me, have downgraded expectations of the UK's growth for 2024-2025. With only Germany, who's actually in a recession at this point in time, according to the OECD, doing worse. But that's in the G7 mind. In the G20, if we look at the figures there as well, the UK's at the bottom of that table with only Russia behind it. The Germans are just above. And the Germans are actually in a recession. But when you get to the UK is in recession and all, the only difference is that the UK government are cooking the books. And with the Bank of England telling us that there's going to be another 250,000 people on the unemployment list by the summer, it shows you what that's the Bamport said in the autumn statement about hammering people and trying to get them into jobs that won't exist, or if they do exist are not suitable or not in the area where these people live. Just cruelty for the Tories. Absolute cruelty. Apparently, if you haven't found the job, or you haven't been trying to find a job in the first 16 weeks of your claim, they'll cut your claim off. If you can show to a job centre advisor that you are trying to find a job, then after 6 months you'll be forced into work placement. In other words, free labour, you'll be put out of a company for brew money. And you'll be expected. Thanks, Dylan. And happy St Andrew's Day to you and our son. You will be expected to take a job, as I say, and pay the transport costs yourself. And at the end of that, after you've done your work placement, and you're told, no, we don't have a job for you, you'll be sent back to the job centre, where you'll be under extreme scrutiny, and you'll be offered the placement again. Probably right back where you came from, because this is all a stunt of getting cheap labour to Tory donors. But as I say, with economic growth isn't good, right? So forecast for 23-24, this year actually, 22-23 or 23 leading into 24, is 0.5%, and for 24-25, the OECD are predicting 0.3%, so a drop in economic output, which isn't a surprise because everybody's forecasting that. It also tells us that the UK is suffering from the highest inflation, and that the inflation for the year 2023, the year for 23, average inflation in the UK at this point in time is sitting at 7.3%. The underlying inflation rate is 4.6%. Sorry, it's high 7.3%. But when you take in other factors like food price inflation, energy price inflation, then according to the OECD, the average inflation for the year 2023 here in the UK is 7.3%, which isn't bad because I said about 7.5 to 8%. Yo, that's not bad, because when it hit 4.6 last week and I hadn't given it proper thought, I thought, well, that's that prediction I made out the window. But actually, the OECD is backing up my prediction that it would be between 7 and 8% for the year. And it appears it's settled at 7.3 and they expect it to be 7.2 with the underlying inflation counted in next year. So good, folks. Looks like the base rate inflation is going to be about 4.6, but when you add in all the other factors like food price inflation, which is stubbornly high at 10.4%, and of course the energy cost rocketing, then inflation is staying high. And we're going to factor in things like wage rises and things like that as well. But when all these things are factored in, underlying inflation in the UK at the moment is running about 7.3% according to the OECD. Right. So staying in the union doesn't look like a clever move at this point in time, but the last few polls showing more than 50% of the Scottish people want to leave the union now. It is becoming the settled law of Scottish people. It shouldn't be. Political pressure will be coming, you know. But according to, I was talking with Gordon Ross's programme the other day there, and according to him, we're going to have to go to the international community. But as I keep telling you, a third party is going to have to take our case in front of the International General Assembly of the United Nations to get our case heard. A third party member nation. We can make all the deputation team we want, but we don't have a seat at the table. Okay. So, economic looks no going good. Okay, right, let's move on. Meanwhile, back here in Scotland, Alba's most recent defector. Thanks, Geordie. That's very generous. Hope everyone's having a good day. I hope so too. I hope you all get a wee off at night. Alright. And a wee nice meal. Anyway, back here. Alba's latest defector, Ash Regan, wants to pull Scots on increasing Holyrood's powers to include the power to hold a referendum. To hold a constitutional referendum without Westminster issuing a Section 30 order. Now, the national newspaper who run this story is running a poll, and at the last time we're looking, 51% of the people in the national newspaper's poll on Ash Regan's idea thought it was pretty daft. So 51% were against it. I'm surprised it's as high as 40, 49, 4. But the question is, how do you poll to give the Scottish Parliament more power when it doesn't have it within its power, it doesn't have it within its remit? So, as we know, referenda has evolved except for constitutional referenda. So, is Miss Regan supposing we hold a referendum on the powers to hold a referendum? And does she think that will make any difference to the people that actually put the Scotland Act in place? Does she actually believe that that would enable the Scottish Parliament to pass a bill allowing the Scottish people to hold an independence referendum? Your birthday yesterday, Gingers. Happy birthday. I'm not going to do a max. I'm not singing happy birthday to you. Anyway, I don't know what to... I have absolutely no idea why this is a story at all. Is it just me? Are these people wacky? Nurse, it would appear that Ash is off her meds. Hear that? She's on some of David's meds. Because she's definitely off her heat. Wow. As I say. So what she's suggesting is a referendum on the powers to hold a referendum. Because that's the only way I can think of this being polled. Or she's going to run a poll in the national newspaper. She's going to Ipsos Mori to do it. Because Ipsos Mori have just done a poll to tell us that 54% of the people of Scotland would like to leave the Union. I didn't notice anybody doing that wouldn't pay any fucking attention. Wow. I don't get it. Anybody any idea what she's on about? Put it in the comments. No, I'll see it because it's moving that quick. Brian, you could be right with that. But no, as I say, Ash is off her meds or something. I don't know what it is. Right, let's move on. As time slowly ticks over. Alistair Union Jack has been trying to block Scottish representation at COP28 in Dubai from being heard. Now, Scotland is leading the world on the set-up of a reputations fund for nations worst affected by climate change. Now, as you know, folks, I mean, there's a lot of nations who are suffering the worst with climate change, who had nothing to do with the creation of climate change. So Scotland's previous First Minister and this First Minister are arguing that those of us who are contributing the most to climate disaster should put a fund in place to sort the bloody mess out and to help those specifically in poorer nations transition to green energy. But as I say, Alistair Jack wants to shut him down. Anyway, he was questioned on this Scottish questions by Chris Law, MP for Dundee, and Jack said Scottish ministers may discuss climate change as it's devolved, but the UK government policy is to keep the Scottish government out of reserved competencies of foreign affairs and and talking with other international partners about Scotland's constitutional position within the United Kingdom, because the Constitution is reserved. Okay, so the standard answer from Westminster is, you can talk about climate change with anybody you like, that's the whole. Don't dare talk about international affairs, foreign affairs, don't dare talk about constitutional issues, because we say you can't, because we say they're reserved matters. And of course, Chris sat down with a chuckle, didn't he? Because, as we know, Air Miles Angus is just telling Jack every day of the week, get it right up, ye. And that's exactly what Air Miles is doing. He's trotting around the planet. Not just promoting Scottish business, but promoting Scotland's constitutional future. Hey, as I say, so, I mean, Jack can say what he wants, Westminster can say what he wants. You're not going to shut Angus up. You know, you couldn't do that with a gag. Shut Angus up. Never mind anything else. Jesus. Yeah. Anyway, but what's interesting about it is, right, when this first came up in the Scottish Affairs Committee, right, and Jack was basically saying in the committee at the time, no, and we're instructing UK diplomats to tell you to wished if you start talking about these things. Well, of course, word did that go into the international community, didn't it? And it's, as far as I'm being told, and I have been told this a few times, they have a wee chuckle in the middle of the night when we've been talking about these things, and that is that international embassies and ambassadors are deliberately bringing up Scotland's constitutional position within the UK just to piss the UK off. Because the Scottish ministers are not allowed to bring it up. But there's no UK diplomat can stop an ambassador for another country for bringing it up. And as I say, as I've heard a few times, it's become quite a joke in diplomatic circles that when a Scottish minister trots up, they're just going to start talking about Scotland's constitutional position just to annoy. So are you, Billy, if you want to take that attitude. Just to annoy Westminster. Because when you get right down to it, Billy, as long as we're in this bloody union, we're all British. Whether we like it or not. Even though Scottish, 72% of Scots going to be Scots only. Yeah. Now, Billy, go back to talking about the amount of people that died today because of UK austerity and tell us how it's our fault. Alright? You want us all to abstain from voting? Aye. This is democracy, Billy. That's what people do, we vote. Right, anyway. So, Alistair doesn't want the whom's having his hour in Dubai this weekend taking the lead on anything. And they say they've made it clear Scottish ministers may not talk about reserved matters while abroad. But of course, they say Air Miles Angus just tells them piss off, he talks about what he wants. And diplomats around the world are deliberately asking about the position of Scotland within the Union every time a Scottish minister rocks up, and they're doing it just to annoy the British ambassador or the British attaché who's attached to the Scottish minister. Gives them something to report back to Westminster, you know. Okay. I'm Scottish and all, but this guy, Billy, keeps telling us all we're all British. You know. And that we'll stop voting. Because stopping voting will make a difference. Maybe he's right. Right, let's move on. Education Minister in Scotland, Jenny Gilray, commits. Oh no, hold on, we want to hold that. Let's move to the UK court inquiry. You've been watching this, folks. If it wasn't for the amount of fucking death and destruction, it would be comical. Anyway, the last wee while we'll Chris Whitty. And we'll be James Cleverly. We'll get Dominic Raab. Sorry, folks, couldn't make out a word he was saying. He's a wee Willie any. The minute Raab opens his mouth, I fall asleep. With James Cleverly, and of course with Captain Cocaine, we Govey give evidence. So when they were allowing on for Chris Whitty, well, he backs up his other sidekick, Professor, what do you call him? Stick it in the comments. Anyway, Chris Whitty tells us that nobody in Sage, backing up what the other good professor said, nobody in Sage was a consulted on eat out to kill your granny, and eat out to help the virus spread. And that Sunak, he also confirmed that Sunak did say just let him die. Meaning Sunak was he was basically voicing the same opinion as Boris Johnson. Boris thought that the virus was nature's way of cleaning the deck of old people and should just let it rip, let the bodies pile high. Well, apparently Mr. Sunak wants us all just to die. Now, we spoke about this last time. That's treason. That's treason. And so what did Mr. Cleverly tell us? Mr. Cleverly tells us that actually Bojo was that uninterested in being Prime Minister if Dominic Cummings was actually acting Prime Minister during the pandemic. You know, the guy that went to Barnard Castle to test his eyes. No, guy that thought getting in a car and driving, it was a good idea as an eye test. Apparently that guy was running the English COVID situation. You know, mental. And what did Wee Govey, Captain Cocaine, tell us? Wee Govey tells us that the UK government weren't chuffed because their normal policy with Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland was just to tell them what to do. No, you consult them, just tell them. But apparently they couldn't do that this time because health and the NHSs are devolved. And apparently not being able to tell us what to do really frustrated those in number 10. But when we look at the chaos and calamity in number 10, you got to say it yourself. Ah well. Just as well. Hey, these things were devolved. And then we look at the polling that was done with Wee Govey on how the different devolved nations thought the pandemic was being handled. In Scotland, the majority of people thought the Scottish government were handling it well. In Wales, the majority of people thought they were handling it well. I'm not quite sure about Northern Ireland, but in England, they just didn't think so at all. Which, we knew that, because more people in England were watching Nicola Sturgeon each day to find out what they should be doing, rather than watching Westminster, you know. But, so, I think Hancock's up with the Inty. I'll need to go back and watch that a little later. But, you know, it has been very, very, very enlightening. It has been enlightening to watch the COVID inquiry down that road. It's overshadowed the COVID inquiry here. Well, let's face it, there's not as many fireworks going off along there in Edinburgh what there is down that road in London. Don't sniff it in, go says. Anyway, say Captain Cocaine, he wasn't chuffed that he couldn't just tell Nicola Sturgeon what to do. And he also tells the COVID inquiry that communications between Edinburgh and Cardiff were non-existent. You know, there you go. Not as if it's something we didn't know. Right, let's move on. Education Minister of Scotland, Jenny Gilray, commits 900,000 to councils to combat aggressive, abusive and violence in schools. It would appear that over the last week, in schools in Scotland, according to the RSSB, I think it was, who are monitoring this stuff, 1 in 10 school workers was abused or had to put up with aggressive behaviour or suffered from violence in Scotland schools last week. 1 in 10. Now, that's not just teachers and classroom assistants. We're also talking about janitorial staff. We're talking about those who work in canteens. We're talking about cleaning staff. It takes a lot to run a school. Administrative staff. But That's not a great figure. 1 in 10. But on the bright side, for 900,000 quid, you buy a lot of Tossies. Anybody remember them? Don't remember ill discipline in schools when they were around. No, it's not as if I suggest we go back to them. I don't. What I do suggest is that parents and grandparents, I suggest we all get a grip of our little darlings and make it clear to our little darlings that that sort of behaviour in school is not bloody acceptable. Well, of course, there will be parents out there who, unfortunately, aren't paying much attention to what their little darlings are getting up to in school. And even if they were, if they're behaving like that at school, they're obviously behaving like that at home. So there's obviously parents needing support and getting a grip of the little darlings, because that's not acceptable. That isn't acceptable. Anyway, the Tories takes the 900,000, split it between 32 councils and said that's not really an awful lot of money to put training in place to help people deal with this stuff. The SNP's reply was budget constraints, and it's up to the councils how they use the money. It's just a bit of assistance. Aye, as I say it now, I don't seriously suggest we go out and spend £900,000 on Tossies or belts. I don't think it's a good idea going backwards, but maybe a wee bit more support for those families that are no really getting the grip of their children. Because believe me, if they're behaving like that at school, they're obviously behaving like that at home as well. So there's something there that needs to be done, because it's unacceptable that our school staff have to put up with our little darlings playing up to that extent. Now, we also had the debate in the Scottish Parliament about, well, we didn't answer a question actually, in the supplementary questions at First Minister's Day, which had been held by the Deputy First Minister, and it was from a Labour MP, and she was asking Shona Robertson about the amount of children that are now starting school in a position where they're not ready to start learning because of the pandemic. A lot of little darlings couldn't get to. A lot of the little darlings couldn't get to nursery school, didn't get to interact with other little darlings. So a lot of them, when they get to school these days, are not ready for school and aren't actually socialised very well, and that the language skills are a wee bit behind. So that would appear there's another area that we're going to have to concentrate on. But what Shona did point out is that traditionally, over the period, kids, as they go through primary school, tend to catch up with each other. And she also went on to explain that actually exam levels in National 5s in English are really up there to the same as before, or higher than pre-pandemic levels. So it would appear that kids are catching up, but there are more behavioural problems because of the pandemic. And this could be accounting for the increase in secondary schools and all. Because you take a teenager and you lock them in the room for a year, they're bound to go up the wall. Right, let's move on. Beth Riley of Sky News is reporting that Conservative Party headquarters and campaign manager Isaac Levida have been told by Number 10 to get the party campaign ready for the 1st of January. So it's beginning to look more and more like a May election, folks. Why do I say a May election? Because they want to get a budget out first. They will want to get a budget out first, and in the hope of buying off some voters. Smoke and mirrors, here's some sweeties, guys. And the hope of staying in power. But if what Beth Ridley is reporting at the moment is true, then I would suggest it would be a May election. I would agree. I would think it's going to be a May election. Aye, let's move on. Ursula von der Leyen has upset the people at Talk TV and GBBs, and they went into crisis because apparently she's told the younger generation here, well, basically in England, because it doesn't apply here on Northern Ireland, England and Wales, that it'll be up to them to reverse the mistake of Brexit, and that the EU will keep the door open for England. There's also a report in the National Day about some sort of scheme to keep the door open to Scotland as well. But anyway, Ursula von der Leyen's report, intervention, as people like Ben Habib Graf is not in GBBs. And Ben tells us on GBBs, I've seen this clip, Ben tells us that the EU are doing their best to stop the UK from exiting. I couldn't quite get it myself. January 2021, we were out. Now we're seeing the problems of being out funnel through. So, I mean, what Ben Habib was on about, but as we know, he was one of the mad Brexiteers. And we also know that the Tory party at the moment are throwing hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, or trying to, in the road of Westminster politicians actually being able to get back in, because they're diverging, and the further you diverge, the harder it is to get back in. Now, does the UK meet the EU criteria at the moment for joining? Nah, but nobody does. Under Article 49, I mean, where your GDP, sorry, where your deficit and that is, there's nobody in Europe makes that anymore, so that's that one out one day. The rest of them on a democratic accountability, don't make it there either. Let's face it, if you can deny Scotland its democracy, and if you can strip away the democratic rights of your own people down that road, or with things like basically kiboshing strikes, kiboshing public protests, or trying to, then I don't think you meet the democratic criteria either, if you're in England. But I don't think it's on the cards. Starmer talks about closer relations, but for the next Parliament, nah, it wouldn't be on the cards. In fact, I don't see it being on the cards doing that road for at least another decade. Something like that. Now, so Brexiteers who are in the minority, and remember, folks, polling tells us that the people of England have woke up, the people of Wales have woke up and realised they made a great arse of things with their vote. But as we all know, it was a protest vote. It was a protest vote, Brexit. You know? Hi, Anthony. So, but as I say, von der Leyen's got the Brexiteer nut job's going to have nut. She's rattled Jacob Rees-Moggs teeth for him. You know, he'd be bouncing about that big mansion that has banging his head off the wall. Right. Time is moving on, so we better move on. Alright. Israel and Gaza, a ceasefire. Well, it's supposed to come to the end this morning, the 2-day extension. What do you want? 2-day extension. And as I say, I think they're still struggling to try and extend it again. But the big question is going to be, what happens when the Palestinians run out of hostages? Now, a temporary ceasefire or a humanitarian pause, whatever you want to call it, it's definitely not the answer. And I'd hate to be in Gaza right now as a civilian. You've just been patched up and it's about to break loose again. You know, but pressure for the world, the international community, and the peoples of the world around Israel to come to an agreement for a permanent ceasefire and a two-state solution. Israel's not interested. America and the UK is not interested because we've spoke about what it's all about. It's about a new canal and access to oil and gas and who controls it. That's what this is about. And countries like America and the UK are wanting to see the Palestinian people wiped off the map to achieve their objectives. It's not just Israel we have to look at. And I see China and the EU, it was in the UN today, telling Israel to show some respect. China's one of the very few people that Israel's scared of. As I say, I don't know where this has gone, but I know what it's about. And that's more important. Always follow the fucking money. Always follow the money. Yeah. But that's what this is about. So where are we up at? Anyway, the other things that we learned while this ceasefire has been on is that there's no function in the hospital. Most of the educational infrastructure has been destroyed, and 60% of residential structures have been damaged or destroyed. Now, what that last statement tells me is that this is deliberate targeting of civilians. We're talking about 60% of residential structures in Gaza have been bombed. That's where people live, that's where people take shelter. That tells us that they have been committing a war crime. They've been deliberately targeting civilians. So, there you go. To see, when we look at Sir Comrade Kid Starver, we look at Sunak, whose family are probably going to make a fair few quid out of the destruction of Gaza and the murder of Palestinian people. We say, well, where do we go? And so far, this conflict, which is only about 5 weeks old, has cost Israel $50 billion. That's a lot of bombs, folks. That's a huge amount of bombs. $50 billion. On the bright side, the Israeli economy is tanking at the moment because people refuse to send goods to them, buy goods from them. So hopefully sense will prevail, because this is a bloody sore one. So it is. Actually, last Braveheart, the EU are split on it. There's actually now 9 out of 27 are still on Israel's side, I believe. But there you go. I just don't know where this one's gone. 17,000 people have died so far on the Palestinian side. 17,000. That's nuts. What Hamas did, let's not try and colour it in. What Hamas did was horrific. But Israel knew it was coming. Egypt had told them. And when you've been penned up in an open prison for 17 years, 16, 17 years, things will occasionally or will eventually come to a head. But the reprisal is out of hand. It is out of hand. And it's not on. And as I say, it's about money. It's about money. That's all it is. It's about power, influence, and money. And Israel is just a puppet. You have to look behind the puppet to see who the puppet master is. You're right, Red Scotland. Hamas was created by Israel. And Netanyahu was the one that blew the trumpet for it. So, it's an interesting situation. Israel created Hamas. Hamas commits an atrocity. Israel overreacts. But Israel wanted to wipe them out anyway. They want the Palestinians off Palestinian land. Might be a wee bit more about colonialism and a occupation for Israel. But as I say, when it comes to the wider world, the wider world's interests are in a new Suez Canal type thing and access to the oil and gas reserves off the Gaza's coast. So it is. Right. That's what I've got for you today, folks. I hope you found it entertaining. I hope you found it informative. A wide variety of stories there. So we've no time to discuss Westminster Parliamentary Standards Committee throwing out complaint about SNP slagging Labour off using parliamentary note paper. We've no time to discuss Standards Committee looking into Scottish Tory MP David Duggan for fiddling his register of interests. And we've no time to tell you that another English city, in this case Nottingham, has issued a 114 section, basically declaring itself bankrupt. So we've no time for these stories. Well, technically we did, but I'm not worried because there's only 3 minutes left and I'm working in an hour. Right, so no time for these stories. But the other stories I picked out to talk about today, I'm hoping that David will be recovered and back with me on Monday, but if no, you'll be getting me again on Monday. I want to thank everybody for your kind contributions. Dave and I are endeavouring to get it out the door. We'll let you know where it went when it goes there. And I'll let David know you're all wishing him well. Now, listen, if you like what we do, and the viewing figures are good, if you like what we do, or what I do when I'm on myself, please hit the like button on YouTube. It helps the algorithm, drives up advertising revenue, and that allows us to give more food to food banks. Also, subscribe, please. Even if you normally watch us on Facebook, jump across onto YouTube, put in the 2 Davies. Thanks, Alistair. Your drive time show fund. Thanks very much, mate. Even if you're watching Facebook, you say, jump out of YouTube, type in the 2 Davies. You'll see our logo come up, which is the one you see when we make a comment. Click on it, and just click live, and all the videos will come up. You go on the top, it says live, because mostly our videos go live. Hit live, and then there's a catalogue of them on. Just hit one of them, and then hit subscribe and like, and that will help. That will really help us. Now, the other thing is, if you like what we do, or you like what I do when I'm doing it myself, please share across your social media platforms. Okay, viewing figures on Facebook are starting to move to YouTube, funny enough, but viewing figures are stable, according to what Restream's telling me. We're averaging 2,000 views per show on the day of the show, and we're reaching about 11 to 12,000 people a week, which is not bad. All right. I say, so please share across your social media platform. Okay. Now, I'll definitely be back on Monday to do it all again, and hopefully the other David will be with me. Okay. Now, you guys, look after yourselves, and remember the Christmas special, folks, for folk that are on their own. I'll be putting out my usual Christmas show, which I used to only do on Facebook, but I'll now be doing it on Facebook and YouTube, between 12 and 2, according to Madam Director, on Christmas Day. So if you're on your own, for that couple of hours at least, you can keep me company. Alright? And we'll just talk about whatever you want. I'll even invite a few people to come on and have a chat. Alright? Look after yourselves. Enjoy the rest of today. for those of you who celebrate St Andrew's Day, I'm not a religious man myself, so doesn't mean that much to me. But that is a national saying. You look after yourselves. Bye for now.